Hi there, and welcome back for our Chapter 14 review session, which is basically our Manifest Destiny chapter. We'll be talking about Texas, we'll be talking about California, the Mexican War, Polk, Harrison, Tyler, Taylor. We'll be talking about all of them, and hopefully that you'll find the next 10 to 11 minutes helpful in your review for Chapter 14, Manifest Destiny, which we'll start right off with that definition of Manifest Destiny, which we all know from our reading class that John L. O'Sullivan was the newspaper editor of the Democratic Review who coined the phrase Manifest Destiny, which basically means, as designed by Providence, America shall conquer to the Pacific Ocean. Right? So Manifest Destiny becomes this idea, this belief that it's God's designed will, His plan for America to expand. And that kind of encompasses what Chapter 11 is about, westward migration. I want to talk about the presidents first of all. We'll start out with the election of 1840, which we have the Democrats running the President Van Buren, and this Whig Party running really a guy with no political experience, William Henry Harrison, which you all remember was, of course, old Tippy Canoe from his excerpts from the War of 1812. Now, Harrison's basically elected on his military record than anything else. He's going to be going against Van Buren, who the Democratic Party's mired in, of course, the Panic of 1837. So it's not going to be very likely that the Democrats will be able to hold on to the White House. Through design by the Whigs, Harrison's going to be elected. War hero, great military record. Now we have our 9th President of the United States. Unfortunately, due to pneumonia, as some say, but we all know it's a curse of Tecumseh that does in our 9th President, William Henry Harrison, our first Whig. So he's out. That's it. We're done. We're done with Harrison. Our 10th President is John Tyler. So the Vice President, who's actually a Democrat, which was a ploy by the Whigs to get a president from one ticket and then vice president from the Democratic ticket to sort of pull in those Southern Democratic votes. All right, well, guess what? Whigs, you just got yourself a Democratic president. John Tyler, the old Republican, really, because he has a belief of limited government and states' rights. So he's really a Jeffersonian. So he has nothing. He has no nationalistic ideas or values or views. He does not believe in it. He goes against everything on the Whig ticket. So tariff, no. Internal improvements, no. Bank of the United States, no. So he's actually going against all things Whig, and he's actually trying to force his entire cabinet to resign. And so the Whigs quickly realize we have a guy who's really not from our party. And of course the Democrats, they're not claiming Tyler. And so John Tyler, our 10th president, really is a man with no party, as we said in class, and he's really infuriating all of the Whigs initially by his lack of support for the Bank of the United States, the rechartering of Bank Number 3. It's gone. It ain't going to happen. So he's really their man without a party. 1844, we have our dark horse candidate and Lisa Boris, period 5. Thanks, Lisa, for bringing this up in class. Lisa was talking about what's a dark horse? What does that mean? A dark horse candidate really means that he was not, excuse me, as part of the nominating convention, Polk was not really thought of as a viable candidate. But throughout the process of nominating a candidate in 1844, the Democrats could not agree on a candidate until out of nowhere, from Tennessee, we have James K. Polk as our president, who is really going to come into office stating that I have a vision, that I will be able to get you California. Again, these are things I went over in class. Here we go. The major objectives for Polk: tariff reduction, independent treasury, I'll establish the bank policies once and for all. I will establish the 54-40 or fight was that campaign slogan that he was going to say. I'll get that Oregon territory, and through a negotiation with Great Britain, they were able to establish the 49th parallel as the border between Canada and the United States. So he did establish the Oregon territory border. And he said, I'll bring in California, I'll bring in Texas. So tariff, bank, balance the budget, Oregon territory, California, Texas, I'll get it all, and I'll get it done in 4 years, America. A vote for Polk is a vote for America. And so the Democrats get their guy, their 11th President of the United States, James K. Polk, and Henry Clay. We have some nice parting gifts for you. Thanks for trying. But America clearly does not want Clay to be our president. So he is our manifest destiny president. So this whole idea of manifest destiny, as I said, it was John L. Sullivan's coined the phrase. And so it's inspiring all these guys and families to move out west. These pioneers. You have, the Mormon Trail heading out west, the Oregon Trail, Santa Fe Trail. So what you have here is these people heading out west for what? Opportunity, for land, for a chance of a better life. And most of these were just common to poor families traveling in packs. It wasn't guys just going out. It was just these families heading out in the covered wagons and really just looking for a new life. Out west, California, they're looking for gold. Up in the mountains, this is where General Weiss, period 5, thought the mountain men were fur trapping in Texas. No, these mountain men were going after the fur trapping out west. Just some big hairy guys, just trying to make their life of trapping in out west. So Jenna, cotton in Texas, fur trapping out in the mountains with the big hairy mountain men. So let's talk Texas. Let's talk 1820. Let's talk Mexican government allowing the whites to come into Texas, mainly for cheap land that will allow them to become cotton land. So in 1820, Stephen Austin picks up where his old man left off and encouraged thousands to go to Texas. And by 1830, we see a lot of Americans in Texas, and by the mid-1830s, the Mexican government bans American immigration in Texas. But we all know rules are often suggestions to Americans, so they clearly ignored the immigration ban on going into Texas. When there was a regime change in Texas, when Generalissimo Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna overtakes the Mexican government, clearly it was a sign to the Americans living in Texas, that this is an opportunity to declare independence. So on March 2nd, 1836, Texas declares herself independent from Mexico, and it's at this point where General Lopez and his troops go into Texas to try to overtake the revolutionary leaders. Now, the historic Battle of the Alamo that we talked about today in class in San Antonio, you have Lopez's troops surrounding the old mission, and the Texans are trapped, and they have an option to give it up, give up the fight, give up the battle, give up the hope of independence, give up the American dream, or fight. And of course, they fought and lost and died. But it was a costly victory. It was very costly to the Mexicans. They won, but they lost. And they might have won the battle, they lose the war. And so after the Alamo tragedy, one Sam Houston and other Texans at the Battle of San Jacinto. It's really just the city of San Jacinto. They capture Santa Anna's troops, and they capture him, and they basically Santa Anna recognizes the independence right away. Doesn't mean Mexico does, but Santa Anna gives them their independence, and they seize them, they capture them. But again, the Mexican government is not recognizing Texas as independent. Now, the debate of annexing Texas, well, that's going to be an issue. It's going to call into question the slave states, upset the balance, but most importantly, to many Americans, many Whigs, that annexation of Texas it's dangerous. What kind of country are we? Is this the path that we want to go down? So it was very controversial the way we acquired Texas, and so that slowed up the annexation of Texas. Given on top of that, Texas is coming into the slave state. So that's also an issue that's going to have to be dealt with in 1861. So finally, after Polk wins his election in 44, and before Polk actually takes his inauguration, Texas is annexed by Tyler, and then by the end of 1845, in Polk's first term, Texas actually becomes a slave state. And this is the end of part 1. Part 2 to follow.